Retailer, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. We'll be talking today about the importance of analytics in an increasingly multi-channel world. And I emphasize the word multi because consumers aren't just shopping in stores and via websites anymore, as you'll soon hear. We'll be hearing from three speakers: Omer Minkara, Research Director for Contact Center and Customer Experience Management at Aberdeen Group; Chuck Chapek, an expert in customer relationship management, cross-channel marketing, and customer analytics; and Saurabh Gupta, Director of Retail Product Management at SAS, the sponsor of today's presentation. After they speak, we'll take your questions, but you can ask questions anytime using the message box on your screen, and you will all get an email in the next couple of days providing instructions on how you can obtain today's slides. Before Omer begins, I want to show you some recent data that illustrates how complex it is to get a complete view of how today's consumer shops. We know they're shopping more online. As you can see from this chart, online shopping has been growing 15 to 17% year over year over the last 6 quarters, while store sales have been growing at 3 to 4%. And consumers say the web will be the #1 place they shop this holiday season, but most consumers certainly will be shopping as well in many types of physical stores. They will also be shopping by their TV sets, mostly TV shopping shows, although we're starting to see the very early days of shopping directly from web-connected TV sets. They're also shopping from catalogs they have for years, and increasingly they're shopping from mobile devices. In fact, 36% say they will shop from a smartphone or tablet, which is up from 28% last year, according to an annual study by the E-Tailing Group. All 4 other channels decreased from 2013, but mobile devices increased. And here's the breakdown of how they shop via mobile devices. Shopping on tablets inches up a bit from last year, and many consumers now are shopping from mobile apps. E-Tailing Group didn't ask that question last year, but when they asked this year, 10% said they shop from mobile apps. That's almost as many as shop from websites they access on their smartphone browser. That didn't surprise us here at Internet Retailer. In our recently published Mobile 500 guide, we found that the average retailer with at least one mobile app is getting 30% of its mobile sales from apps. But apps add complexity in tracking customer behavior because before apps were a significant part of their business, retailers only had to track activity and sales on a website, not from their apps. Today, many retailers have a website optimized for smartphones, separate from their PC website, and some have tablet-optimized sites. Tracking a consumer moves between a mobile site, PC site, mobile app, and so forth is not easy for most retailers. And then, of course, retailers with stores also have to track how their websites and stores influence each purchase. Customers routinely go back and forth between stores and the web, as these statistics show. 49% showroom, that is, they go to a store to see, feel, perhaps try on or try out a product, and then buy it for less online. But 68% research first online, then buy in a store. So how does a retailer track all that cross-channel behavior? And it's only going to get more complicated as today's teenagers and young adults becomes tomorrow's consumers. As we can see from this slide, younger consumers are by far the most likely to use mobile apps while inside stores. And this slide shows what they're doing with their mobile phones as they shop. Checking a store location is the most common response, but many are also checking prices, browsing online retailers, gathering product information, and reading reviews. So the interaction between the channels is hard to figure out. It's good for a store if a shopper uses their smartphone to check a store location or hours and then goes to the store to shop, which she might not have done if she wasn't sure where the store was or whether it was open. But it's bad for the store if the consumer inside the store checks his Amazon app, figures out he can get that flat-screen TV cheaper online, and walks out of the store without buying. The cross-channel effect cuts both ways, and it's not easy to quantify all the various impacts. To top it off, consumers want consistency across channels, as this slide shows. In particular, they want consistency in terms of pricing and promotions. But that can be hard for retailers to offer, as they often have separate store and e-commerce teams, different competitors online and offline, and different merchandise. As complex as this all is, the shopper still wants the retailer to be able to present her with just the right offer just when she wants it. Not surprisingly, not many brands feel they can do that. And that is because it's complicated. But our speakers are going to try to uncomplicate it, or at least tell you how to more effectively navigate this complex world of multi-channel retailing. As I said here earlier, we'll be hearing from Omer Minkara from Aberdeen Group, Chuck Chapek, an expert in customer relationship management, cross-channel marketing, and customer analytics, and Saurabh Gupta of SAF. After they speak, we'll take your questions, and you all get an email in the next couple of days providing instructions on how you can obtain today's slides. With that, I will turn the mic over to Omer Minkara of Aberdeen Group.
Great. Thank you, Don, and hi, folks. Once again, welcome to our webinar. And as we're getting started, what I'd like to share is a brief overview of who I am and what we're going to talk about for the remainder of the webinar in collaboration with Chuck, Saurabh, and Don. As you can see on the screen, as part of my research, I'm looking at the key trends that influence retailers as well as companies in different verticals around what matters when it comes to their customer engagement, customer experience management programs. What works for the best in class, and how do they differentiate themselves from their peers? And as part of those studies, what we found recently is that only 6% of organizations today are extremely satisfied with customer data. That is, if you look at it from the reverse angle, about 94%, more than 9 out of 10 of organizations are not happy with their ability to make better customer experience decisions using the existing data captured through different touch points that Don has touched upon so far. So what we're going to do today is to hopefully help you do a better job in increasing the quality of your customers' data so that you can better target your consumers. And the reason why we're going to do that is, in addition to creating more targeted marketing programs, more targeted customer conversations in the form of sales and service as well, there is a quantifiable benefit tied to the best practices that we're going to talk about. In fact, in one of our recent surveys, we found that benefit to be to the tune of $300 million if you look at the red circles on your screen. Now, for further context regarding this particular study, the average survey sample pool for this particular survey was about $1 billion in company revenue. So what that tells us is the best-in-class organizations towards the left are seeing about a 30% jump in their revenue that they can attribute to the best practices that will be the subject of our focus and conversation for the rest of the event. So with that, as we mentioned, we've just looked at the business value of customer analytics. The remainder of the event, we're going to touch upon how to build more personalized interactions with your omni-channel customers. Don mentioned that customers today demand more consistent interactions across different touch points. So we're going to hear different perspectives, best practices, and case studies on how you can accomplish that. We'll look at the best-in-class organizations that we determined as part of our research. What are their characteristics and what do they do differently, and share those insights with you. We just talked about case studies, and as a reminder, we will have a Q&A session at the end. So if you have any questions as we go along our slides, please feel free to submit those questions as they come, and we'll be answering them in the order they are received. So with that, what are we going to learn today? What are we going to leave you with as key learnings after today's events? Well, we'll learn that simply adding new channels to your customer interaction mix, that could be your sales, marketing, or service programs, is not a differentiator anymore. What differentiates the best-in-class organizations that we're going to look at is the ability to deliver contextual customer experiences. Contextual being consistency, but also the same look and feel, the same brand awareness carrying over across different touch points. We're going to look at how you can better manage your data, essentially converting your data into insights to accomplish that true omni-channel environment. And we'll also recommend and hear from Chuck extensively on that around why you need to think beyond marketing and apply customer analytics elsewhere in your business, in your merchandising and store operations, for example. And then we're also going to hear from Saurabh around some of the different technologies that companies are looking into incorporating their customer analytics programs, such as predictive analytics, to better target their consumers. With that, a quick housekeeping item, that is, everything that we're going to share today as far as research findings goes are grounded on a formal methodology that we in Aberdeen use day to day. That methodology helps us understand who are the best-in-class organizations. What do they do differently? Essentially, the top 20% of the several hundred organizations we survey are called the best-in-class. Then, through our research, we understand their characteristics. What makes them unique? What do they do differently from all the other businesses out there that contributes to their success? So with that, earlier we heard from Don around the term omni-channel and consistency. So let's drill down into that term and provide you with our definition, as we're going to hear that term quite regularly throughout this webinar, and also share insights around how that differs from another term that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, multi-channel. So starting with the former, what is omni-channel? The way we describe the term is companies using multiple channels and devices to interact with their customers in a context-aware manner. So let's use an example to articulate that. Take a consumer using a smartphone to access your mobile application. The next time around, the same consumer is using a laptop to access your company's website. The same look and feel they had on the mobile app is carried over. Essentially, the brand perception, the interactions with the brand are consistent. But moreover, the same message delivered through the mobile app is also consistent with the messages they receive through the regular website. Therefore, you're really delivering a truly contextual experience to your customers. The difference between multi-channel on the other end is that you might be still using multiple channels, but those channels are not in sync by definition. And a different component, the devices, is missing as well, because it really focuses on just the channel piece, that multi-channel piece, as opposed to omni-touch points. Therefore, you're not able to deliver necessarily a context-aware program. And to build on that, why there's so much conversation that focus on omni-channel in the marketplace today, our research shows that 99% of customer experience practitioners today, ranging from marketers to sales and service executives, are using at least 2 touch points to interact with their customers. Those touch points vary from business to business, but what that tells us is that simply utilizing multiple channels to interact with your clients is no longer a differentiator. So what is the differentiator is, I'm sure, the question in many of your minds. And as we can see as part of our research, the companies in green seems to have found the right answer. Those companies are the ones that implement a true omni-channel environment. That is, they deliver a consistent message to each and every customer across the different touch points they have with them. And if you look at the business impact, you will see that a lot of their benefits are aligned with what I'm sure are the same objectives driving your businesses. Reducing cost, for example, towards the bottom right, to the tune of 24% year over year. If you look at the left, you will also see that they're doubling their cross-sell and upsell revenue growth compared to the companies in gray that are not omni-channel customer engagement organizations. So the key takeaway from here is, if you really want to differentiate yourself from competitors by using multiple channels, you also need to focus on that consistent messaging piece. And we're going to hear more about that from Chuck and Saurabh around how your peers in real-life scenarios have deployed several of the best practices that we're going to talk about to accomplish these results. Before we get to that point, however, let's talk a little bit about what are some of the roadblocks that companies see along the way to accomplish the results that we have seen so far. That is, reduce cost, increase customer spend, and happy customers. As you can see up top, the top challenge many companies are sharing with us is a trend that we call the empowered customers. That is, customers today know all about you, your brand, your products, and your services, even before they interact with you. Essentially, they use the information available across different social media portals, online communities, to educate themselves on what they want. So they pre-qualify themselves in the first place. That means that the second you interact with them, you need to be consistent with the messages you deliver, and you need to be very targeted with those messages. So with those being the challenges, what does customer data have to do with those? How can you use customer data better to mitigate the challenges that we have seen so far? I'd like to point your attention to the answers of a question we have asked in one of our related surveys. Essentially, we asked companies, why are they not satisfied with their ability to use customer data? Why are only 6% of the companies out there satisfied with their customer experience programs as it relates to their use of data? And there were two interesting findings. Number one, we heard from organizations that they want more data. They want to have more relevant data, more timely data, so that they can address the evolving customer needs. Just as importantly, and I will say even more importantly, is converting that existing data into insights. In a lot of the conversations we have with your peers in the market space, we see that companies are rich in data, but they are poor in insights. And we'll see some of the ways they mitigate that, but as you can see, quality has to go in tandem with the quantity of data you're gathering across the different touch points. So speaking of the different technology tools that companies are using to convert the data they capture across different touch points, those touch points could be social media, web, mobile app. How do they convert those insights? How do they convert those data into actionable insights? Up top, you will see two technologies, business intelligence and web reporting and analytics tools. Those two technologies really help in converting the structured forms of data into insights, essentially helping you understand trends and correlations when it comes to your marketing, selling, and servicing programs. But just as importantly, especially over the past several months and years, we see more companies focus on technology tools such as predictive analytics, which helps you look at the historical customer engagement results and project into the future. That is, if you're talking about a marketing scenario, for example, by analyzing the historical marketing campaigns targeted to a specific segment, you can project how that segment will respond to a similar campaign in the future. That way, you can better predict the returns of your marketing spend. And there are also different technologies available to convert the data into insights, including text analytics, to analyze the social media commentaries, for example, and get customer sentiments. So now that we have seen several different technology tools that help the best-in-class organizations, let's take a look at several different activities that utilize those technologies within. Towards the left, you will see segmentation and segmenting the customer base for the purpose of delivering targeted offers and content. Once you understand what customer segment responds to what messages in a positive way, you're more likely to target them with what resonates best as part of your marketing campaigns. And that's something that the best-in-class are twice more likely to do. Not just segmentation, but also utilizing the historical response rates to target those customer segments differently. If you look at what we have in the third data point here, ability to deliver consistent messages across different touch points, the way we see a lot of best-in-class companies accomplish that is by analyzing the customer insights that could be stored in CRM, that could be stored in ERP or order management systems. Essentially developing a single view of your customer's data by integrating the disparate systems in your business so that you can understand what was the last interaction with that customer, what was the touch point that was involved, and what message did I deliver. By having that sort of visibility in the business, you'll be able to maintain the consistency in your messaging. And also, speaking of that, integrating marketing campaigns with the web store content is definitely something that is in line with this data point that we just discussed, that is consistent messaging, that is understanding what did the customers look for when they were visiting your web store, so that if they have added an item into a shopping cart, you can follow up with a targeted email if they didn't end up purchasing yet to say, hey, we'll give you an X% off if you'd like to purchase this item today. Now, we've covered a bit of the ground so far, and as mentioned earlier, we will have several conversations with Chuck and Saurabh around how those activities can and have been deployed in real-life scenarios. But a quick snapshot of what we learned so far. We learned that simply adding in new channels to your customer interaction mix is not enough to become best-in-class. The best-in-class companies differentiate themselves by delivering a context-aware experience that is consistency, but as well as regularity of the brand experience that your customers have across different touch points. We talked about the role of data and analytical tools in converting data into insights. We're going to hear from Chuck in just a few seconds on how you can utilize customer analytics, and not just in your marketing programs, but also merchandising, store operations, and elsewhere. And also we're going to hear from Saurabh around the additional technology tools available, such as predictive analytics, that could help you convert customer data into insights. So with that, I will hand it off to Chuck, who's going to talk a little bit more about some of his experiences in this field.
Thanks, Omer. Good afternoon, everyone. So the conversation with Aberdeen and SAS is a rather interesting one. So the area that I focused on was really drive the value of customer analytics to show the benefit, especially across the retail organization. And so what I'll talk about is a little bit around the importance of data quality and some tips that I've learned along the road, as well as the enablement. So it's not just about the data, but it's also about the tools and the people. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then I'll share with you some examples across different organizations as ways that I've applied customer analytics to really drive strong business outcomes. So just as a little background on myself, I've been leading CRM, customer analytics, and database management at 4 different multi-channel retail organizations over the past 11 years. I have to admit that SAS has been my analytical platform of choice in each and every one of those organizations. And while I'll talk about the results that we've been able to see in a lot of these initiatives, I can't unfortunately cite who the success was done with. So I'll be leaving out the specific retailers as part of this conversation. So the first piece, to really continue on Omer's comments around the importance of data quality. In many retail organizations, we leverage a lot of third-party data, and that could be to identify a customer through some pieces of information, or it might be to expand what we know about the customer, from demographics to purchase behavior, etc. But I highly recommend using a source of data that you know to be accurate in being able to test and validate that data. What I have historically done has been using my Christmas card list. So it's about 250 individuals, their family members, their friends, but I know exactly where they live. I know how many children they have in the household. I have a good sense of what their income is, and it gives me a very strong litmus test when comparing and contrasting third-party data sources with my internal data to know how accurate that data is. Also, as you're starting to share that information with third parties, it's always great to give them test data files, whether it be the zip code transactions that come out of your POS system for a month, because if you're sending them actual real data, it becomes very easy to start to forecast match and append rates based on the actual data coming out of your systems. Third is you want to focus on prioritizing the information that's most important to you as part of that process. So as an example, if age is really critical for you to be appending into your database and you want to make sure you have accurate age information, then that should be the priority as to how you audit and validate that data as part of the decision-making process for the vendor. And then my final thought is really using multiple data sources. As a good example, we were using name zip append, which is where you take the first name, the last name off the magstripe of the credit card, couple it with a self-reported zip code, and you send that information to a third party for them to enrich with the rest of the postal address information. And as an outcome of that, you have a number of records that can't be matched or identified. So we started passing those unmatched records to a secondary data provider, and in fact, they were able to pick up and identify about another third of the individuals that we sent over. So it was a great way where, A, we were able to validate the accuracy of that data first, and then B, we were able to really add and fill in some missing holes within the customer database. As I mentioned, I would highly recommend you validate the data. I know that that goes without saying, but in one of my experiences, I was assured by the e-commerce group that the customer data feed and the transactions were accurately flowing into the customer database, and it turned out for roughly 18 months that only about 60% of the data was actually flowing into the customer database. So it was through our own auditing process that we actually found that very significant hole in the database. So my point is, don't assume that the data in your customer database is entirely accurate unless you go through an auditing process. And then really ensure that the methodology that you are using will help tie customer data together, especially when you're not just stitching a name and an address together. And the common one that I find is being able to link web behavior through web trends or Google Analytics or Omniture, and getting that data and being able to link it back to customer information. They typically don't nicely go together. So make sure you have a methodology in place that specifically looks at those uncommon data formats and data types that you're trying to bring together. On the enablement front, once you have good data, the data is really the foundation for all of this. But obviously, without the resources or tools, it really isn't actionable. And so core tools that I have found to be beneficial very consistently are tools such as SAS-Base, SAS-Stat, and now the more web interfaced or Windows interface, SAS Enterprise Guide and SAS Enterprise Miner. Very powerful tools, and what I love about these especially is when you have a group of resources working within a department, they're enabled to share and reuse of code and the techniques and the calculations. So what that means is you might be able to create, let's say, a match-off report for how you're going to measure your email campaigns or direct mail campaigns, but now you have the ability to reuse that code and share it across the entire enterprise so everybody's measuring in the exact same way. It really allows to reduce development time and ensures that you have consistency across the organization. And as you all probably know, finding those skilled people is becoming more and more difficult, primarily because of the demand for analytical resources. And it's going to be even more difficult in the future to try to retain those because they are becoming very sought-after resources. So some of the examples that I'll talk about here, these first couple will be marketing related. And in one instance, there was an organization where direct mail was break even. So the amount of money that we were spending on the direct mail equaled what we were generating in incremental gross margin. So the net was a lot of time investment and a lot of money to basically break even. And the intent was we needed to make direct mail far more productive than what it was. So we started by creating a segmentation system which was based for this retailer on products that customers had purchased previously. We then enabled new predictive models that were really focused on driving incremental response. So what was the stimulus that people needed to receive in order to respond versus those customers that were already planning to go and shop? From there, we looked at a lot of the historical insights around what worked and what didn't work with those customer segments historically. And then we embedded a lot of offer testing and format testing that we had used over the previous year. Ultimately, it led us to our first customer contact strategy, where we created, in essence, a grid where we had all of the customer segments and their model score results in one dimension, and the second dimension contained all of the direct marketing or direct mail campaigns that we were planning to execute. And in essence, we stacked up then how many direct mail campaigns and which direct mail campaigns each of the customer groups and segments would receive over that season. And the net is, in about a 2-year time frame, we went from an IMROI, or incremental margin return on investment, of -1%, which was that break even I was mentioning, to a positive 132%. And we got there by not cutting the direct mail circulation. In fact, we actually grew circulation by about 25%. We grew at that same time the incremental sales and incremental margin by more than 170%, and took marketing contribution, which was the incremental margin minus the marketing cost, from a loss of $65,000 to a gain of $11.5 million. In the second instance, we used a lot of the same foundation points with a different retailer to take a very significantly unproductive direct mail program, losing roughly $20 million a year, and building a new contact strategy that would allow us to engage a broader base of our customer segments with new, more personalized and relevant marketing. And then we also scaled back the amount of investment we were making into our very best customers because it was no longer driving the incrementality. So again, we started here with a new customer segmentation. This one happened to be based off of frequency of purchase. There we leveraged new predictive models, again, focused on driving incrementality and incremental response. From there, we layered in historical productivity and results of the previous direct mail programs, as well as offer and format tests to spearhead the contact strategy. So in essence, you can see that we went through very similar step-by-step process, and the results were very similar. In a 2-year time period, we went from losing $20 million a year to making an annualized $15 million a year, again, incremental margin minus marketing cost. And that broke down to driving up total incremental margin by roughly $23 million. And at the same time, we scaled back the direct mail cost by $12 million. And on a per-piece basis, the productivity of the direct mail program went up significantly by 130% versus the previous year. Now, we took some of those cost savings, reapplied them back into the marketing organization so that they could build more awareness for the brand. But we also took some of those dollars and put it into trigger-based marketing programs. And so there we started by creating a customer lifetime value model. And we built that to really understand where we should be making marketing investments on a go-forward basis. So from there, we built that in alignment with the finance organization, gained that partnership and organizational structure. From there, we created 7 life cycle segments and allowed the lifetime value to roll up to each one of those 7 life cycle segments, because we couldn't think at the customer level, but we could action against the different life cycle groups. From that, we ultimately got the buy-off and support from the finance and marketing organization to create these programs against the 3 most important segments, which were those customers that became assimilated after they made their first purchase, the attrition prevention program, which was aimed at stemming the tide of attrition before it happened, and then reactivation, which was really around getting lapsed customers back into the brand. So some of the key metrics that you'll see down below, again, we were very focused on driving incremental response because we knew that the long-term benefit of having those customers back in the brand would outweigh the short-term promotional campaign results. So as you can see, most of those campaigns generated incremental response rates of 2% and higher. And as we started to look at the cost of the incremental responder, you can see a range of anywhere from $14 to get somebody back that was a lapsed customer, all the way to $22 to get somebody that was attriting back into the brand. And then you can see right below that the segment lifetime value. So the long-term value of somebody that you reactivate is $70. So a $14 investment is a pretty well-founded investment to get $70 in the next 3 years of bottom line contribution. Attrition prevention, the spend of $22 to get 96 back, and very quickly you could start to see the benefits of thinking longer term in this instance as opposed to staying solely focused on promotional campaign results. So from there, talk about some of the merchandise opportunities. One organization that I was with, we had a mentor-mentee program, and so one of the brand presidents happened to be my mentor, and really wasn't sure what database marketing was, or CRM, or customer analytics, or whatever we chose to call it on a particular day. But his business challenge was that he had put merchandise in about a quarter of his stores. He wasn't sure if he put it in the right stores or if he could put it in additional stores. So the question that we were charged with was, how could we help him answer that? So we started by trying to understand who the customer was that was actually buying this product. And initially the buyer had given us a profile or that the manufacturer had given to the buyer. It's a very interesting demographic composition of who the manufacturer said was actually buying the product. But from that, we actually went back and looked in the customer database as to who the customers were, demographically what did they look like, what other products did they buy, and then built a predictive model that looked at all of the stores within the fleet. And from there, we were able to take that model and score all of the stores and force rank them from those stores that had the highest correlation to the customer profile all the way to the lowest correlation to the customer profile. We also had 25 stores that were selling the product, and we could look at how those sales were correlating against the model results. So the net was that we were able to see that the model that we had built for all of the stores was very accurate. It tied back to the sales that we were actually seeing take place in stores. From there, we were able to see that there was an opportunity to move product out of the low-performing stores where the model reinforced that it was not likely to be successful, take that product and reallocate it to stores where we weren't carrying the product, but the model said that there was a high likelihood of success. Additionally, we were also able to provide the buyer with a far more accurate and comprehensive profile of who the customer was, which was very different than what the manufacturer had given us as a profile of the customer. And the final piece was we looked at opportunities by using our model to say, within the market basket, what other products did these customers buy? And even outside of that market basket, what other products did they buy in other trips to the stores? To be able to plan more accordingly in the stores as to where that product should be in adjacent to the products that we're selling along with it. Again, so the brand president got benefit, the buyer got benefit, and the head of store operations got benefit off of asking one simple question to the customer analytics team. Another example that I'd like to share too is that most organizations go through a long-range planning process, and oftentimes it may be driven by the finance or the strategy or the planning organization. And in this particular instance, we were able to really bring the customer database to bear on being able to forecast the future. So we started by segmenting the customers into new, retained, and reactivated customers. We looked at their historical trends as well as spend. We then developed a time series model to really forecast the business over the next several years on a quarter-by-quarter basis. But we also enabled the finance and planning organization with the opportunity to change some of those assumptions. So as an example, if we had a 40% retention rate that was built into the model based on the historical data, we gave the finance organization the opportunity to change those assumptions and move it to 41 or 42% and be able to see the cascading effect of that in the long-range planning model. We found that over the first couple of quarters after we had launched that model, we were able to do some hindsighting. We found that generally speaking, the model was fairly accurate. We were, I think, plus or minus 2% on generating out the sales numbers to be in alignment with the actual model results. We used those learnings to then tweak the model for the next year as we were updating on a go-forward basis. So the final one that I will share that I didn't bother putting in here is In another instance, I had a strong belief that there was a lot of coupon reuse that was going on within our stores. And so by analyzing the coupon redemptions that were taking place, we put them into 4 different buckets. So one bucket was those people that we had actually mailed the coupon to and the coupon was redeemed. The second group was those people that were in our campaign control groups. So we knew we didn't send them those direct mail pieces, so there was no logical way that they should have been able to redeem the offer. The third was they weren't even in the marketing campaign, so we're not quite sure how they were able to redeem the offer. And the fourth bucket was those people that redeemed the offer, but we didn't capture enough information about them in order to really understand who they were. So as we looked on an annualized basis of the people that were redeeming the coupon that were either in the control group or in the not in campaign group, we found about $23 million worth of gross margin erosion or giveaway that was taking place. So the result was we built customer ID barcodes. So every single barcode was unique that we sent out. We also put in place that those coupons could only be redeemed once unless there was a manager override at the POS. And in that case, we provided exception reporting for the store operations team so that they could see if there was misuse of the override capabilities. But very quickly, we saw that $23 million of giveaway gross margin become practically nothing in a very short time period because of the systems that we put in place, but all driven from the customer analytics. So in closing, customer analytics, from my perspective, can drive a lot of benefit in the organization well beyond marketing. But you have to make sure that you're confident in the data quality, the people, and the tools, because once you open that up to the organization, if you start having to retract your analysis or not feeling confident in the way that you're presenting it, it can set you up for failure down the road. I would also try to find opportunities to build relationships with business leaders, try to understand what some of the challenges are that they face, and then go to work with the customer data and the analytics to help try to drive some insights to provide them with value. And it's amazing how little success can ultimately go a long way in driving behavior and value within the organization. So the way that I used to think about it was we used to be constantly trying to drive engagement within the organization and get people to understand the value of customer analytics. And after we started doing some insights for a few select executives, we started to get a tremendous amount of inbound requests for analytical work, and so it did not take time, a whole lot of time, for that tide to change. So with that, I will pass it on over to Saurabh.
Thank you very much, Chuck, for providing some excellent examples of how to put customer analytics into action. I will continue in the same vein and would like to offer 3 key messages for our audience today. First, leveraging customer analytics within different functions such as marketing, merchandising, and service, and more importantly, in an integrated manner across them, is key to omni-channel transformation. Second, retailers must find ways to operationalize the insights gained from analytics to sustain and scale the benefits. One of the biggest challenges that we see with retail is the scale of decision making. If you just begin to look at the SKU store combination a retailer has and the interactions that they need to have across multiple channels with their customers and over time, you very quickly begin to look into billions of rows in order to make even simplest of the decisions. So the key always is how to consistently operationalize the insights so that you have time to free up resources and continue to innovate once you have operationalized the first set of insights. Finally, I'll provide some success stories on how SaaS is helping various retailers succeed in their omni-channel journey. We'll see examples where SaaS is helping retailers grow their high-value, loyal customers, how they're helping retailers grow their sales per customer and help retail retain and grow their customer base. A quick word about SAS. SAS is a global leader in advanced analytics and data management. We serve multiple industries. We have 90 of the top 100 Fortune 500 companies as our customers. The main thing I would like for you to take away about SAS is we know how to operationalize analytics. We are a stable company which prides itself in customer satisfaction. We want to partner with you, invest in your success, and help you win and become successful. From our perspective, omnichannel retailing is about providing a consistent brand experience to consumer across various touch points. I want to, in this particular slide, what I'll focus on is how SAS provides tools and solutions that help retailers in their omnichannel journey. From our perspective, it all begins with operationalization of big data. As you know, retailers have access to multiple data sources. These data sources are both structured as well as unstructured. So it becomes quite important to be able to put these various data sources together. The SAS high-performance analytics platforms provides the necessary data management capabilities and tools to model, optimize, and transform data into business insights with the necessary speed and scale. Customer analytics is an example that we have been discussing on how it becomes very important for us to be able to gain insights from this big data and put it into action. Multiple retailers leverage SAS today and its data management and analytical capabilities to build their customer data marts. We are helping retailers segment their customer data in various ways. Chuck gave you some examples of that earlier. We model customer behavior and capture it in various metrics and scores. These scores and metrics are then leveraged across various functions. In this, I show examples of marketing, merchandising, and service. We have solutions which are named over here across each of these three areas that enable integrated decision making across them. As an example, we help retailers optimize and localize their assortments using SAS merchandise planning. In this, we are able to leverage customer scores to ensure that we are adding SKUs which are conducive to their loyal customer base. We are not dropping any assortment which their loyal customers tend to buy. Similar scores are also leveraged in SAS revenue optimization to make promotional decisions. These promotional decisions can either be a mass promotion decision or customer-specific offers. In both of these scenarios, we are able to leverage the SAS analytics and also streamline the process between marketing and merchandising so that the right decisions can get made. SAS also has the capability of leveraging event stream data so that we can engage with customers in a real-time manner across the channel of their choice using SAS real-time decision management. So these are some examples of how we enable customer-centric decisioning across various functions within retail. From here, I'll walk you through some customer success stories that highlight some of the points I have just made. The first example is that of Sobeys. Sobeys is the third largest grocer in Canada. They wanted to ensure that customer is part of their decision making across all their touch points. They leveraged the SAS analytical platform to build a data mart which has a complete view of business and customer data. They then run analytics on top of it, which help them create and optimize customer-specific offers as well as mass promotional offers for their stores. Then using SAS promotion optimization, they have been able to integrate and streamline their marketing, merchandising, creation, and price execution processes. This is a perfect example of how SAS is able to leverage customer data and also leverage that data and optimize the promotion planning process that transcends marketing, merchandising, and other functions within an organization. The next example is that of Designer Shoe Warehouse. DSW is a leading footwear retailer that offers a wide selection of brand names and designer shoes. It operates more than 377 stores within the United States, and they do business through e-commerce and mobile sites as well. One of the challenges that DSW was facing was to ensure that they had the right sizes of various shoes in their stores. So they leveraged what is referred to as SAS size optimization. Using SAS size optimization, they're able to understand the right sizes that must be carried in each store. It's important to note that size profiles tend to vary by shoes and by seasons. So as a result, if you begin to look at your assortment across multiple seasons, you will very quickly get into thousands of size curves. As a result of which, in order to operationalize this insight, you must be able to integrate it to your supply chain systems. So in case of DSW, we integrated size profiling with their allocation system to ensure that the right size inventory is sent to the right stores. With the right size in the right stores, they're also able to reduce their markdown because they're able to sell through the inventory that they have in the stores. The biggest testament and the most exciting part about this success story is that DSW ran an annual customer survey, and for the first time in 2013, when they ran their survey after Christmas, the complaint about not finding the right size dropped off for the first time in many years of that customer service. So to me, that's the biggest testament that one can get, which is a direct customer feedback about the fact that DSW is doing a better job with the inventory of sizes in their stores. The next example is that of Macy's, and this is, as you guys know, Macy's does business across multiple channels. In this scenario, they wanted to effectively measure and understand the impact of its online marketing initiatives on store sales. In this scenario, they leveraged SAS Enterprise Miner, which helped them understand the customer behavior and engagement. As a result, Macy's sent emails out less frequently, but with far more content and thought, and the retailer has reduced the subscription churn by approximately 20%. Using SAS Business Intelligence, they have been able to automate their report generation, which has helped them save more than $500,000 a year in comparable analyst time. And they are investing this time and money into more innovative activities, as well as helping serve their customer in a better manner. The next success story is that of Northern Tools. Northern Tools started as a mail order catalog company. They have now evolved into, they have 85 stores, so they do their business through brick and mortar as well as through the internet channel. With SAS marketing automation, Northern Tool consolidated their customer information from all its channels and also made it available in real time. This has enabled the company to market to specific customer segments more successfully. They've been able to optimize the number and type of catalog mailings based on the customer behavior. As a result, they have seen a 10-fold increase in the response rate, as well as they have been able to save about $500,000, which they were spending in outsourcing some of this work. The last example that I'll provide is also a perfect example of integrated merchandising and marketing decision-making that leverages customer analytics. This is leveraging SAS marketing optimization along with some of these other SAS tools that I mentioned here. By leveraging the SAS marketing optimization solution, the retailer was able to segment the customer base and optimally match offers with the customer preferences. As a result, what the retailer was earlier doing was sending mass mail out with the same set of offers to every customer. Now what they do is they only send 32 offers which are matched for every customer, and that's the only mail that goes to that specific customer. So they have been able to cut down on direct mailing costs, and based on the returns they have seen, the best way to summarize those returns is that they have seen an improved response rate. They find more households are using the coupons that they are directly sending to the customers, and they have seen an increased spend per household. That to me is the best testament as far as the retailer is concerned, as well as and as the leveraging of the SaaS analytics is concerned. So finally, I'll leave you with the same 3 key messages. That it's really important that customer insights are leveraged across the entire organization. It's very important to operationalize these analytics, and SaaS has the right tools and solutions that will help you operationalize the analytics and enable you in your omni-channel transformation. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thanks, Saurabh, Omer, and Chuck. We do have a few minutes for questions, so we'll get right to them. First question, this is for you, Chuck. How do you track catalog ROI if they receive a catalog but then buy either online or in a store?
Sure, that's a good question. So the way that we do it in either direct mail or catalog is we start with a mail and control group, so the individuals that are actually going to receive the direct mail or the catalog, and then a lookalike group of individuals that don't receive that. And typically the places that I've been, whether they buy online or in store, that information ultimately funnels back into the customer database. Obviously, if it's e-commerce, you get 100% visibility to who bought the product, and in stores, from my experience, it's ranged anywhere from 60 to 80% of the transactions we're able to link back to a customer. So we, in essence, are looking for the shopping behavior of the customers, both in the mail group and the control group during that promotional time period. We're not looking at coupon redemptions. We're looking at specifically being able to identify the shopper and buyer both online and in store. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, thanks. Another question for you, Chuck, but Omer and Saurabh might have some thoughts too. How do you handle data hygiene with all this data coming from disparate sources?
Well, the way that I've handled it, at least historically, is all of the data feeds ultimately run through the same data hygiene process. And I found that while you can use internal tools, I have found it to be more beneficial to leverage outsourced tools from some of the major marketing service providers. So I have all of that data run through on a nightly basis in order to standardize it, run it through the exact same business logic, and then ultimately consolidate the individuals and the transactions together.
Yeah, and to add on that, Chuck, I think you had a great point in terms of really mapping the data flows. And what we see among different end-user organizations is the focus on mapping the data flows, but also partnering with the IT team as a strategic partner with line of business. I know there's this notion where the line of business needs to be independent from IT, but there's really great synergies where we can tap into the strengths of IT in managing customer data flows or operational data flows. So I've talked to quite a bit of companies who have worked with IT rather successfully, where maybe they had a quick functional team where they had people moving from line of business into IT to develop common objectives, to determine the systems that capture structured and unstructured data, but also integrate the different systems, either working with an outsourcer or internally within the enterprise.
Okay, well, we're at the top of the hour, so I think we're going to have to cut off the Q&A, but thank you, Omer Mikara, Chuck Chapik, and Saurabh Gupta. There's a lot of great information today. Remember, everybody on the call will get an email with instructions on how you can get access to today's slides. I hope you found it useful. Thanks for attending, and have a great day.